Support for this episode is provided by Mohawk Finishing Products. I've been using Mohawk Finishing Products since 1986. From sandpaper to fill sticks, Mohawk has all your finishing needs. Click on the link in the description below and visit Mohawk today. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the shop. This is the door that goes to the shed space, now the new finishing room. I just finished trimming it out, and I think this is a pretty simple but classic design that will look great in any home, and you can make the moldings yourself using your router and the table saw. For the casing, I'm using 1x4 poplar. Poplar is relatively inexpensive, has a nice tight grain, so it's great for painting, and lumber dimensions are always a little smaller than described. So a 1x4 actually measures 3.5 by 3/4 of an inch. The first thing I like to do is establish the reveal. The reveal is the space between the casing and the face of the jamb. I'll cut a stick at 5/16 of an inch and hold it flush with the face of the jamb and trace a line. I'm using this stick to make the reference marks at the top, about 1/3 of the way down the door, at the center, and at the bottom. I've put a square cut on the bottom of the casing, and now I'll hold it against the jamb and make a mark at that reference line. On the other side of the door, again, I'll hold the casing up, make a mark at that line, and that's my next cut. On the upper right-hand corner of the jamb, the sheetrock is a little proud of the jamb, and one way to deal with that is to just pound the rock in a little bit. Holding the casing to the reveal mark on the jamb, I nail the casing to the jamb first. And you'll notice that I hold the gun like this and not like this. And that's because when the nail comes out of the gun, it's more likely to bend this way or that way. With the side legs attached, I'll take a measurement for the headpiece, and that's 44 inches even. Okay, and that looks pretty good. I'm flush on both sides, but to dress it up a little bit, I'll add a piece of bead molding to the bottom, and I'll make the bead molding using a bead molding bit in the router. This is the router bit that I'm using, and I'll have a link to it in the description below. I'll be attaching the bead molding to the bottom of the headpiece flush with this reveal line. So I'll hold a piece of 1x4 at that reveal line and trace a line at the back. Next, I'll measure from the front to that line, which is 15/16, and I'll make this cut on the table saw. For the next cut, I want to just remove the reveal on this side of the molding, and that measurement is a little heavier than 5/16. Pushing thin pieces of molding through the table saw is one of the more dangerous things to do. And one way to avoid that is to push the molding through just a little more than halfway, flip the molding over, and finish the cut. After cutting the first miter, I'll hold the molding with the reveal line at the edge of the board. At the other side, I'll use a sharp pencil to trace a line for the next cut. Using a little wood glue and 1-inch nails, I'll attach the molding. For the return, I'll use the offcut. For this piece, I only need a little glue. Next, I'll dress this up a little more by adding a 2-inch cap to the headpiece. On second thought, I think 1 3/4 inches will look better. Remember, when you cut the cap to length, you want to have the same reveal all the way around. And since the reveal from the head to the edge of the cap is 1 inch, I'm going to add 2 inches to the measurement of the head, which is 44 inches, and that would make the measurement of the cap 46. Before I attach the cap to the headpiece, I'll use a chamfer bit in the router to soften the bottom edge. I'm attaching the cap to the headpiece, keeping it flush at the back and making sure that my reveals are even. Now that I have the headpiece assembled, I'll go ahead and attach it to the top of the casing legs. All right, well, I am really happy with the way this turned out. And if you're going to be putting up casing, there's a good chance you're going to be putting down baseboard. So I'll show you a good idea for that will go great with this design. When you're thinking of a molding design, it's important to think of how the molding will end. And I like the molding to end in a dead end. And the way to make that happen with this design is by adding a foot to the bottom of the casing. That way, the baseboard will dead end into the casing and the shoe molding will dead end into the foot. To make the foot, I've set the fence at a 1/2 inch, raised the blade, and I'll make 2 passes to resaw the board to a 1/2 inch. Now I'll cut the board at 7 inches. I'll measure down from the top a 1/4 inch, set the angle of the saw to 45 degrees, and cut a chamfer on the top of the board. To make the shoe molding, I'll use a chamfer bit to put a slight chamfer on the edge of a 1x4. With a piece of tape on the table saw insert, I've adjusted the fence so the offcut is a 1/2 inch. I've traced a line, and each time I make a cut, I'll readjust the fence so the offcut is a 1/2 inch, and the offcut is the molding. After all the doors are trimmed, you can add the foot. Here you see how the baseboard dead ends into the casing. And the last piece of molding after the floors are finished is the shoe molding. And you can see how it dead ends into the foot. Okay, well, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. And this is pretty much the last project in the whole Fixing Up the Shop series, which started right around September 15th. So it's hard to believe, just a little bit more than 3 months, and the whole shop has had a major facelift, from the new space in the back of the shop to fixing up the shed and turning it into a finishing room, the new lighting, the new table saw, and next will be shop furniture. So I'm really excited about that. As far as this trim design, if you wanted to dress it up a little bit, you could always add a little cove molding under the cap here, and maybe a little nose and cove to the baseboard. It's really up to you, but I think that this is a simple but classic design on its own that would look great in any home. Hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for tuning in. For the return, I'll use the offcut. Where'd it go? Shit. And today I'm going to trim it out using 1x4 poplar that you can get at any home store or lumber yard. And I'll give you a few tips that make this a classic design that would look great in any home or lumber yard. The sheetrock is just a little bit proud of the jamb, and that's giving me a little bit of a gap. I've set the angle of the blade at 7 degrees, and I'm going to scoop out the back of the casing and see if that'll give me a tighter fit.